Hey, if you like what you see, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that noti bell because it really helps out. When people talk about The Dark Knight, they usually hail it as the greatest Batman film ever made, and not without reason. Christopher Nolan's 2008 masterpiece redefined the superhero genre, elevated the Caped Crusader into something darker, more grounded and psychologically complex, and left an undeniable impact on popular culture in its wake. But beneath all the praise for its gritty realism, tight narrative and explosive action, lies a truth that has become more apparent, at least to me, over time. The Dark Knight is, at its core, not the ultimate Batman film, but it is instead the ultimate Joker film. While Christian Bale's Bruce Wayne serves as the moral spine of the story, it is Heath Ledger's haunting, chaotic and magnetically unhinged Joker who completely owns the narrative. The film becomes a deep, unsettling exploration of anarchy versus order, where Batman is less the central figure and more than necessary counterweight to a force of nature. Ledger's Joker doesn't just steal the show, he is the show. Every scene he's in warps the tone, the direction, and the emotional weight of the film. His terrifying unpredictability, nihilistic philosophy, and unforgettable lines define the movie far more than any Bat-gadget or growled piece of Bat dialogue. In contrast, when seeking a film that truly centers Batman, his trauma, his detective skills, his methods, his growth, and his entire mythos, that title belongs to The Batman 2022, directed by Matt Reeves. With Robert Pattinson donning the cowl, this iteration of The Dark Knight strips away the blockbuster polish in favor of a noir-driven psychological study of Gotham's necessary guardian. It is the most introspective, immersive, and narratively faithful representation of the Batman character to ever hit the screen. The Batman doesn't use its villains to overshadow its hero, but instead uses them to reflect and deepen the internal and external conflicts that Bruce Wayne is going through. We follow him not just as a symbol of vengeance, but as a flawed, haunted man on a journey to become something more, a protector, a symbol of hope. Where The Dark Knight thrives because of the Joker's philosophical warfare, the Batman thrives because it finally tells the story about Batman. It doesn't borrow from him to build the myth of another, it is simply the myth of Batman. There's no denying that The Dark Knight is one of the most celebrated hero films of all time, but its legacy has been largely misunderstood when labelled simply as the greatest Batman movie ever made. While Batman obviously plays an essential role, the film's heart, soul, and central tension orbit almost entirely around Heath Ledger's Joker. From the moment he appears in the opening bank heist, the tone of the film changes, becoming more unhinged, more suspenseful, and far more disturbing. The Joker doesn't merely serve as a villain, he becomes a philosophical force, a walking embodiment of chaos that pushes every character to their breaking point. Nolan builds the narrative around the Joker's ideology, making him the true architect of the story's events. The Joker isn't reacting to Gotham, he's reshaping it, testing its limits, corrupting its systems, and challenging the very idea of justice that Batman stands for. Every major moment in the film, from the moral quandary about the two fairies to the fall of Harvey Dent, stems from Joker's manipulation, not Batman's choices. Heath Ledger's performance is, quite frankly, the gravitational pull of this entire film. His Joker is not a simple madman or clown-themed criminal, he is a terrifyingly intelligent, deeply theatrical, and committed anarchist to showing the world how easily it can fall apart. With every crooked grin, every unpredictable move, and every twisted piece of logic he spews, Ledger creates a villain so compelling that the audience almost forgets about the hero. His scene lingers long after the credits have rolled, not because of flashy effects or loud action, but because they confront viewers with uncomfortable truths about humanity, morality, and society. He doesn't want money, power, or control. He wants to prove that anyone, even Gotham's White Knight, can be dragged down into the mud. His goal is to expose the fragility of order and the illusion of control, which he does so masterfully, all while laughing in the face of fear and death. It's not Batman who defines the Dark Knight, it's the Joker's worldview that dominates it. Even Batman himself is forced to react rather than lead in the Dark Knight. For much of the film, Bruce Wayne is caught off balance, always trying to catch up to the Joker's next move. He's not the detective solving crimes ahead of the curve, nor is he the brutal crime fighter asserting dominance in Gotham's underworld. He is a man constantly cornered into impossible choices by a villain who doesn't play by anyone's rules. This makes for a compelling story, no doubt, but it also shows that the Batman is not the character in control of the narrative. He has simply become a passive figure, reacting emotionally and physically to the psychological warfare the Joker has waged against the city and its ideals. Even his big moral triumph, not giving into the Joker's push to break his one rule, feels less like a victory and more like survival. The Dark Knight may showcase Batman's limits, but it doesn't explore the depths of his character. Instead, it's a canvas for the Joker's ideology to unravel, torment, and nearly break Gotham's soul. So when we call The Dark Knight the best Batman movie, what we're really celebrating is a movie where the Joker is at his absolute peak. A Joker film disguised as a Batman one. Ledger's performance transcends the genre, not just becoming a definitive Joker portrayal, but also redefining what a villain can do in a story. The film's structure, themes, and momentum are all wrapped around the Joker's plans and presence. Batman, while central, serves as the necessary opposition to give the Joker something to reflect his madness off of. Without the Joker, the film falls apart. Without Batman, the Joker would still captivate. That imbalance is what proves The Dark Knight isn't the best Batman movie, but rather the greatest Joker movie ever made. Where The Dark Knight allows the Batman to exist as a symbol, reacting to Joker's chaos, The Batman 2022 finally places Bruce Wayne at the emotional and narrative center of the story in a way no live-action film has ever thought to do so before. Directed by Matt Reeves and starring Robert Pattinson as a younger, more emotionally raw Batman, the film makes a bold statement. This is a Batman story told on Batman's terms, through Batman's eyes, and rooted in Batman's internal struggles. Instead of being a reactive figure shaped by a villain's actions, this Batman is an active, relentless force, working to unravel the corruption at the heart of Gotham City. From the moment he emerges from the shadows in the film's beautiful opening, narrating his thoughts in noir fashion, it's clear that this version is something much more intimate and layered than previous cinematic portrayals. We are not just watching Batman, we're inside his psyche, following his slow, methodical evolution from a symbol of vengeance into something far more meaningful. The Batman doesn't shy away from the emotional damage Bruce Wayne carries, nor does it gloss over the obsessive, isolating nature of his crusade. Instead, it dives deep into his trauma, showing how it informs his every move and how it has consumed his identity to the point where Bruce Wayne is practically a mask he no longer bothers to wear. Pattinson's Batman is a recluse, driven not by a polished sense of justice, but by grief, fury, and a desperate need to make sense of a broken city and a broken world. This emotional depth gives the audience a Bruce who feels real, not the billionaire playboy of Nolan's universe, but a young man hollowed by loss and fueled by rage. As the film progresses, his relationship with the Riddler's case and the growing realization of how connected his family legacy is to Gotham's rot pushes Bruce into an existential crisis. For the first time ever in a live-action movie, we're not just watching Batman defeat villains, we're watching him grapple with the very foundation of what he believes in. Another strength of the Batman lies in how it reintroduces the character as the world's greatest detective. Unlike previous films, which often showed Batman as a brawler or gadget-wielding vigilante, this one places a heavy emphasis on investigation, deduction, and intelligence. From the clues left behind by the Riddler, to the uncovering of a sprawling conspiracy involving Gotham's elite, Batman is not just a symbol of fear, he is a methodical problem solver, constantly dissecting puzzles and unraveling the lies before him. This detective angle isn't just a stylistic choice, it reinforces the idea that Batman is more than just a fighter. He is a thinker. His intellect, patience, and attention to detail are tools just as sharp as his fists. And the Batman understands that these traits are central to who he is as a character. Gotham becomes a city where crime doesn't just need to be punished, it needs to be understood, exposed, and dismantled from the inside out. This is the Batman mythos in its purest cinematic form. Perhaps most important of all is that the Batman presents a true character arc for Bruce Wayne, something often missing in other adaptations. At the start of the film, he is vengeance, a symbol of fear meant to punish the city's worst. But through the case, his interactions with Selina Kyle and the Riddler's twisted mirror image of himself, he begins to understand that fear alone cannot save Gotham. He realizes that being Batman has to mean more than terrorizing criminals, it has to mean offering hope. By the end of the film, he is no longer just a man in a suit beating down thugs, he's carrying a child to safety through floodwaters, lit by a flare, leading people out of darkness. It's a symbolic moment, a rebirth of his purpose. That scene, quiet and emotional, speaks louder than any explosion or chase scene in other films. The Batman doesn't just show who Bruce Wayne is, it shows who he's becoming. That journey, personal and powerful, is what makes this film the greatest Batman movie ever made. Heath Ledger's portrayal of the Joker in The Dark Knight is nothing short of a cinematic legend. A performance so transformative, so consuming, and so haunting that it forever altered the way audiences view not only the character, but the very nature of acting within a superhero film. Ledger didn't merely just play the Joker, he became the Joker. With every tick, twitch, and slurred syllable, he built a version of the Clown Prince of Crime that felt less like a comic book villain and more like a literal force of nature, chaotic and completely unhinged. He wasn't flamboyant or cartoonish like past versions, he was grounded in frightening realism, a walking manifesto of nihilism and destruction. Ledger's Joker didn't want money, revenge, or control, he wanted to burn the world down, just to watch the flames reflect in the eyes of those who still believed in order. That kind of commitment, that kind of menace, was more than just impressive acting, it was something primal, something that disturbed even after the movie had finished. Ledger's transformation into the Joker didn't just begin and end on set, it was the result of an intense, obsessive process that blurred the lines between performer and performance. Known for locking himself away in a hotel room for weeks, Ledger crafted the character's laugh, mannerisms, and psyche in isolation. He kept a journal filled with dark thoughts and scribbled notes, building an inner world for a man who just wants to watch the world burn. Every layer of the Joker's personality, from his licking lips to the smudged makeup and archaic sense of humor, came from Ledger's deep dive into literal madness. His voice, chilling and unpredictable, felt like it could crack into laughter or threats at any singular moment. Even his physicality, with hunched shoulders and a slinking gait, added to the unsettling unpredictability. Ledger lost himself in the Joker, and the result was a performance that didn't just stand out in a superhero movie, it transcended genre altogether. It became one of the most unforgettable portrayals in film history. But what makes Ledger's Joker so powerful isn't just the technique or commitment, it's the emotional impact he leaves on every scene and every character he interacts with. The Joker is more than an antagonist, he's the puppeteer pulling everyone's strings. He drives Harvey Dent to madness, manipulates Gotham into nearly tearing itself apart, and forces Batman into ethical corners that question the very fabric of his moral code. He creates conflict, not just through violence, but through philosophy, challenging the idea that people are inherently good and that society has any real sense of control. Ledger's Joker doesn't just commit acts of terrorism, he turns the very idea of hope into a joke, infecting Gotham with fear, paranoia, and despair. His scenes don't just advance the plot, they create a sense of dread that lingers because we, like the characters, can never guess what he'll do next. Every time he speaks, there's a tension so thick it could snap, because Ledger makes you believe with absolute conviction that this man could do anything. And beyond the film itself, Ledger's Joker lives on in the culture, becoming a symbol of both brilliance and tragedy. His sudden death, months before the release of The Dark Knight, only deepened the legend surrounding his performance. While it is impossible and inappropriate to romanticize the cost of such a demanding role, it's undeniable that Ledger poured everything he had into the Joker. His posthumous Oscar win was more than deserved, it was recognition of an actor who reshaped what villains, and even acting, could mean in a blockbuster film. Ledger didn't just give us the best Joker possibly ever, he gave us a character who felt real enough to walk off the screen and into our very own nightmares. His Joker wasn't a product of Gotham, he was its mirror, its shadow, and its reckoning. Even today, nearly 2 decades later, the performance remains untouched in its intensity. It has become timeless, etched into the annals of film history as not just the definitive Joker, but as a haunting reminder of the sacrifices made for greatness. Although The Dark Knight is marketed as a Batman film, and while Bruce Wayne's character certainly plays a significant role, the undeniable truth is that the film's heartbeat momentum and soul-shattering tension all revolve entirely around the Joker. From the very first frame, the bank heist that unfolds with ruthless efficiency and chilling glee, the Joker establishes himself as the engine of the story. He isn't a villain who merely reacts to Batman's presence, he dictates the narrative, setting the pace, the tone, and even the philosophical weight of every single scene. While Batman may wear the title, The Dark Knight is fundamentally a film about how society, individuals, and even morality itself can crumble under pressure. And the Joker is that pressure personified. He's not a puzzle to be solved or a threat to be neutralized, he's a challenge to the very concept of order. Everything in the movie, from Gotham's moral fabric to the very soul of its hero, bends, twists, and frays around the Joker's provocations. The Joker's dominance in this film isn't just about screen time, it's about presence. Even when he isn't on screen, his impact looms over every decision the characters have made. He infects the story like a virus, spreading paranoia, fear, and chaos at every turn. Harvey Dent's transformation into Two-Face isn't just the result of tragedy, it's a meticulously orchestrated ascent designed by the Joker himself, who exposes how one bad day can unravel a man's entire sense of justice. Commissioner Gordon is forced into a near impossible position, playing political chess with a terrorist who doesn't want power, just proof that Gotham's heroes are as corruptible as its criminals. And Batman, he is forced to compromise, to spy on citizens, to make ethical concessions that contradict his principles. In truth, The Dark Knight is less about the rise of a hero, and more like the manipulation of an entire city by a villain who refuses to play by anyone's rules. The Joker pulls the string, and everyone else dances. Even in the narrative structure of the film, it becomes clear that the Joker is the catalyst for every major turning point. The hospital bombing, the ferry boat dilemma, the moral disintegration of Dent, all of these are Joker-induced challenges not just to the characters' safety, but to their core beliefs. He stages elaborate moral traps, not for the sake of victory, but for the joy of watching hope falter. His test of the two fairies, for instance, isn't about who lives or dies, it's about forcing people to face their worst instinct, to prove that chaos is humanity's true nature. That sequence, and many others like it, strips away the usual stakes of superhero films, where it is no longer about good defeating evil through strength or skill, but about the collapse of the systems that hold society together. The Joker isn't a villain to be beaten, he is an idea that has to be resisted, and in that way, The Dark Knight becomes his movie, a stage upon which he forces the world to expose its cracks. In the end, The Dark Knight doesn't revolve around the Batman triumphing over the Joker in the traditional sense. Yes, the Joker is apprehended, but his mission is largely successful. Harvey Dent is broken, Gotham's hope has been tainted, and Batman is forced into becoming a pariah to protect the lie. The Joker's legacy isn't defeated, it's cemented. That's the final evidence that this film belongs to him, not to the Batman. The Joker achieves what few villains ever do. He doesn't just shape the hero, he defines him. The title, The Dark Knight, refers to the painful choice Bruce makes in the aftermath, to bear the burden, to become something less of a hero, all because the Joker left him no other path. And while Batman disappears into the night, taking the fall for crimes he didn't commit, it's the Joker's laugh, chaotic, victorious, eternal, that echoes in the minds of audiences long after the credits have rolled. In every sense and every way that matters, The Dark Knight is not just a film featuring the Joker, it is the Joker's film. When we look back on the legacy of The Dark Knight, what becomes undeniably clear, at least to me, is that while it functions on the surface as a Batman film, its lasting impact, its deepest emotional resonance, and its cultural immortality are all tethered to one character, that one character being the Joker. It is his actions, his ideology, and his presence that propel the narrative forward with unstoppable force. It is his war on Gotham's soul that gives the movie its philosophical weight, transforming it from a superhero film into a tragic, psychologically driven thriller. Heath Ledger's Joker wasn't just a supporting antagonist, he was the soul of chaos incarnate, and The Dark Knight was his battleground, with every major shift, every descent into darkness, and every moral compromise the characters endure stems from the Joker's manipulation. The film does not end with the celebration of Batman's triumph, it ends with the city broken, a symbol distorted, and a villain who was already one in spirit. In that way, and in that way alone, The Dark Knight is not just the greatest Joker film ever made, it is a cinematic shrine built around the power, terror, and brilliance of that single, unforgettable character. And yet, as essential as The Dark Knight is to the Batman's cinematic history, it must be acknowledged that Bruce Wayne as a character, as a mythos, and as an emotional centerpiece, often takes a secondary role to the Joker's chaos. This is where Matt Reeves' The Batman steps in, not as a retread of Nolan's mythic spectacle, but as the most intimate, grounded, and fully realized portrait of Batman ever brought to screen. Robert Pattinson's portrayal of a younger, emotionally fractured Bruce Wayne strips away the billionaire bravado and instead offers a raw, vulnerable, and obsessive vigilante, a Gotham that is steeped in rot and corruption. Unlike Nolan's version, where Bruce Wayne is already the refined symbol of justice, Reeves' Batman is still in the crucible, still learning what it means to protect the city, not just through fear, but through hope. It is, at its core, his story, one that spends nearly every frame inside his perspective, his headspace, and his evolving morality. What makes The Batman such a masterpiece of characterization is that it reclaims the focus, putting Bruce Wayne front and center in a way that no Batman film has done before. We watch a man consumed by vengeance slowly realize that Gotham doesn't need another shadow, it needs a light. The use of the Riddler as a mirror to Batman's methods adds thematic brilliance to the story, showing how closely righteousness can resemble madness when untethered from purpose. The Batman gives its titular hero the room to wrestle with his demons, confront his lineage, and redefine what the symbol of the Bat truly stands for. In doing so, Reeves and Pattinson both the most human version of Batman yet, a man shaped not just by tragedy, but by transformation itself. In the grand spectrum of Batman cinema, The Dark Knight and The Batman stand as two twin powerful pillars, each representing the peak of two different, yet equally important, cinematic identities. The Dark Knight is the greatest Joker film ever made, a chilling portrait of anarchic philosophy brought to life by Heath Ledger's earth-shattering and life-giving performance. It thrives on tension, ideology, and the dismantling of order. But when it comes to Batman, to his soul, his trauma, his mission, and his growth, The Batman is without question the most thorough, emotionally compelling, and character-centric film The Dark Knight has ever received. It explores not just the man beneath the cowl, but the very reasons why he wears it in the first place. Together, these two films do not compete, they complement each other. One gives us the ultimate villain, the other gives us the ultimate hero. And in that beautiful cinematic duality, we finally see the complete picture. Batman and Joker, shadow and fire, myth and madness, each perfectly immortalized in the greatest films ever made about them.